Okay, you can see the first slide. You can use the chat box always for asking any questions if there are in between. What I would request is you can have a notebook and pen adjacent to you. If at all any question keeps coming up in your mind, you can note down quickly at that time, and later we can have an interaction. We can have an audio interaction as well later on, where you can raise a hand for asking questions. So, for the people who are first time listening to me, my name is Aravinda, and I belong to Dr. Swami Geetanandagiri's tradition of Pondicherry, which belongs to the holy tradition of Maharshi Bhrigu. And my guru is Yoga Shri A.S. Narsimurthy. He is no more now. I have undergone a 1.5 year of Ashtanga Yoga training under him. Then later on, I have undergone 1 year of Kundalini Yoga training under Vedadri Maharshi. And I have been studying about the secrets of life and death from the beginning, and learning about life and death and teaching the same after a few years has been my passion. That is how this session is being organized. Till now, I have not been conducting such sessions to any public. Only the seriously interested seekers used to contact me, and then I used to conduct direct classes. But later on, recently, I thought, anyhow, we are all using the online resources now. So later on, I thought, let me share whatever I have learned in these past few decades, 2 to 3 decades, to the general public if it is useful to them. And I have been conducting my spiritual activities under the name of this Shreyas Center for Yoga. And all these slides which I am going to show you is basically part of the education which I do in the yoga classes itself, but it is applicable to general public as well. So I thought, let me continue this education here as well. So I have named it as the art and science of eating. Normally people are not much bothered about understanding eating, and some people may quip or some people may laugh at me when I keep this title of art and science of eating. What is the art in eating and what is the science in eating? But eating has been the primordial need for any living beings on this earth, and if human beings are not able to understand the process of eating and what goes inside the stomach and what happens within, then seriously human beings, as being called as evolved beings, they, if they don't try to understand their own body or their own physiological system, that is when human beings are suffering the most compared to all other birds and animals on this earth. Highest number of diseases, large number of hospitals, large number of medicines, everything is available in the modern technology, but still the most suffering beings are human beings only. It is not the other beings. So there is seriously something wrong in understanding the process of eating by the human beings themselves. That is why I have named it as the art and science of eating. I got the inspiration for this title because of the one more title which Master Chowa Koksui had named his healing system as the art and science of pranic healing. I had undergone the pranic healing training somewhere in 1998-99, and ever since I was wondering what a beautiful title he has kept for his teaching system. So later on, I thought, let me keep this also as art and science of eating. So that is the title. You can see health equals adequate exercise plus proper breathing plus correct food plus optimum rest plus pure mind. Health equals adequate exercise. Whether you practice yoga or aerobics or whichever way you do activities, all the urban beings and nowadays even the rural beings, if they don't devote at least a half an hour time for their physical exercise, then later on they get into monotonous activities of sitting in front of the PC or standing continuously in front of a lathe machine, or in whichever way, standing continuously or sitting continuously. They keep working for their livelihood and their profession. But in the meanwhile, if they keep standing, if the body is having, let us say, 60-65 kg weight, the legs are bearing nearly 80% or 90% of the weight. So the hip bones will be mostly affected. Hip bones will be strong, but the muscles which are surrounding the hip bones will have to carry that much of weight of the body. If they are continuously sitting, looking at the PC, then eyes will be affected, neck will be affected. So in a day, at least for a half an hour, if they don't involve in any adequate exercise, then gradually only some parts of the body will be heavily active and some part of the body will be less active, which will cause an imbalance and which will gradually lead to certain types of ailments in the later part of life. So adequate exercise is very much necessary for everyone. Morning when you wake up, you just see the nature, you just observe the squirrels or the birds, how much of activity they do as soon as they wake up. A squirrel simply climbs the tree up and down, jumps everywhere. It is actually doing an exercise without its own knowledge. That is how God has put some intelligence into the squirrel. As soon as a bird wakes up, simply it will keep chirping and flying here and there. It is all part of its exercise. In most of the medical bottles you would have read, shake well before use. In the same way, this body also, as my earlier mentor Satyamurthy used to say always in his classes, that this body also has to be shaken well before its use early in the morning when you wake up. So adequate exercise is the immediate requirement. If you practice yoga, that will be very good. If you don't practice yoga, at least any other types of general exercises, uh, I recommend or I advise you that at least half an hour per day, 15 minutes to 30 minutes per day, devote that time for adequate exercise, especially early in the morning itself. But not as soon as you wake up. At least let there be about 30 minutes to 45 minutes or 1 hour gap after you wake up, because body takes its own time to adapt to the awakened state. Whole night it will be rigid while sleeping. So as soon as you wake up, you should not try to do any hard activity or any rigorous exercise. So first thing is health is adequate exercise. Next thing is proper breathing. Human lungs has got two counterparts, left side and right side. Somewhere in the middle at the left side there is a heart, and otherwise the lungs are basically empty, and the human lungs as such can inhale 5 liters to 8 liters of air. Out of this 5 liters to 8 liters of air, in fact, the air contains only nearly 21% of oxygen, around 78% of nitrogen, remaining 1% of other gases. So out of the air which we inhale, there is hardly only 21% of oxygen. Even that 21% oxygen will not be completely utilized, because you will not be inhaling to the lungs for its full capacity. Let us say the lung capacity is around 5 liters to 8 liters. In a normal rate, people are filling their lungs hardly to half liter to 1 liter or 2 liters. And we expect that our body should have energy. Without oxygen going into the bloodstream, without the red blood cells absorbing the oxygen, without the mitochondria getting enough oxygen supply for burning glucose, how do people think that they will have energy? Only glucose or glucose D is not the energy. That glucose or glucose D or whatever is there in the food which is eaten, that should be converted back into energy by means of a metabolic activity, for which adequate supply of oxygen is also required. People know lot of nutrient related things. People know in each item which they buy how much of calories are there, proteins are there, vitamins are there. But those calories will be there only after that particular food item is burnt inside the system. For that calories to be converted, as such oxygen is very much necessary. But that oxygen intake they will not put on those bottles, because it is implied that as much as you eat, so much as you breathe. But when people forget to breathe properly and they expect health, that is ridiculous, because food plus breath equals prana or equals energy. So first thing is adequate exercise. Second thing is proper breathing. You should be breathing fully to fill your lungs and fully to exhale. At least practice this for a few days. As much as possible, try to slowly inhale. As much as possible, slowly exhale, and your lungs will gradually expand. This also, after your adequate exercise in the morning, if you can try this type of breathing at least for 5 minutes, your lungs will gradually absorb more and more of oxygen and your body will have energy. I would recommend that after, if at all you go into the yogic exercise, if at all you learn pranayama through some competent person around you, that will be still better. Otherwise, at least you should have a lung full of oxygen. In Kannada, I keep saying that hote tumba tinni, yede tumba usradi. Keep on eating, fill the stomach, but at the same time, keep on fill the lungs with enough air also. People know how to eat stomach full, but people don't know how to breathe lung full. That also has to be practiced. Next is correct food. What is correct food? What is incorrect food? That is the topic of this particular sessions, and it will go on till the end of these sessions. I have nearly 125 slides. That is why I had told it as around 8 to 10 sessions. I am not in a hurry to cover any syllabus, or that is not my intention here. I will go in my own pace. Sometimes I may go slow, sometimes I may go fast, depending upon the coverage of the topic. But I cannot limit it exactly to these many sessions or these many hours. Most of the time, my speech comes out spontaneously. It will not come as a well planned activity. Many times my speech comes out as intuitive nature because of the God's grace, and due to which I cannot say that exactly like a corporate style. I'll start here, I'll end here, and exactly I cannot say that I'll end this session in these many exact hours. That way we cannot measure it. So, excuse me, I speak this way directly and frankly. If you like my way of speech, then you will be continuing with me. Otherwise, if you dislike it, then that is your choice. It is basically the teacher's choice to educate the students. I believe that all of you have the student attitude or learning attitude. That's what I told in the mail. So this is how my style is. You have to gradually adapt to this particular style. Okay, that is correct food, then optimum rest. At least 7 hours of sleep every day, because during sleep only maximum amount of repairing of the body happens, and you should have adequate sleep cycle. uh, in general, my lifestyle is by 8 o'clock we will have dinner, and we will not have heavy dinner. A proverb is that which says that breakfast should be like a king, and lunch should be like a farmer, and the supper should be like a beggar. Which means breakfast should be like a king, nutritious, easily digestible, heavy. Breakfast should be heavy and nutritious and easily digestible. I will come to, in the next slides, I will come to the topic of breakfast also. And lunch should be like a farmer works at the field or wherever, and he eats. He knows that even in the afternoon he has to work more. So when he has to work more, he cannot load his stomach so that he has to work again. Even in our offices, we have to work in the afternoon as well. So we cannot load our stomach. If we load our stomach, we may not be effectively able to work in the afternoon. We may develop laziness. So breakfast should be like a king, and lunch should be like a farmer. Supper should be like a beggar. Means if you are hungry, then only you should have a supper. In general, it is the reverse in the urban lifestyle, where supper they take heavily, breakfast they take in a hurry. It should not be so. Supper should be light. Supper should be again less in quantity, because it has to be digested. Because after supper, you will not have any much of physical activity. You are going to go to sleep. Body should not waste its energy only for digestion. Body requires its energy for healing and for repairing. Many times people lose health because they are not giving a scope for the body to repair itself during sleep, because body is busy in digestion and excretion. Body will not find its time for repairing itself, because morning again you wake up. So make it a point around 8 o'clock in the evening you should have a dinner. By 10 o'clock you should go to sleep. In the 2 hours gap, body will digest it. In the 2 hours gap, the food which is in the stomach will pass on to intestine. And the food in the stomach will pass on to intestine, then the body will really relax. Then gradual healing will happen. So optimum rest, at least 7 hours of sound sleep you should get. Make it a point. Then you should have a pure mind. Pure mind is basically a lifelong effort. And as much as possible we have to cleanse our memory, cleanse our head. When you go to sleep, you should not carry the particular day's stress or trauma or negative feelings or anger or agony or whatever. Don't take it to the bed. When you go to the bed, go with the clean mind, like a clean slate. Next day morning again you will have to face the same situations. Next day morning when you wake up, let us think about it for facing the situations. Otherwise, all the day's trauma or whatever is the mental agony, that should not go into sleep, because dream is a process of correction of the mind. Actually, during dream memory organization happens, and during dream itself purification of the mind happens. These are all subtle dimensions. I'll not go much deeper into that dimension because that is not the intention of this particular session. But pure mind, gradually we have to develop an attitude of cleansing our mind on a daily basis. Now, if you have a clean stomach, if you have a clean chest, if you have a clean head, body is already clean and health is already there. Clean stomach, good food; clean lungs, good breathing; and clean head, pure mind. If these three are already kept pure and clean, health is already there. People need not do anything for the health. But this is a common sense which all other beings are having, human beings are not having. Just think about the natural beings. Most of them are having a clean stomach because they are eating only that what God has created for them as food, and they're breathing properly because they are flying, crawling, walking, running, jumping, and they have enough breathing. And they will have pure mind because they will not have this ashtamada or whatever shadvairis, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsara. Birds and animals do not have much. Same way, dhanamada, vidyamada, kulamada, rupamada, yauvanamada, balamada, parivaramada, adhikaramada, these even the other beings are not having except the human beings. That is the reason human beings are suffering this way, because neither they have a clean stomach, nor they have a clean chest, nor they have a clean head. I have been trying to maintain all these three as much as possible to my capacity, and that's how I have been healthy in this way. Let me not boast of myself. Let me go to the next slide. You can see this picture. This is the picture of a mouth, lips, then teeth, and teeth sets will be there. And then this is the tongue. Below the tongue, there is a salivary gland. Here there is one more salivary gland. Here there is one more salivary gland. So as soon as you put the food inside, teeth are there to grind it, and tongue is there to taste it and to toss it. And in that process, gradually all these three salivary glands, you can look at them, all these three salivary glands are going to secrete saliva, and that saliva is going to be mixed up through the food. Saliva is a very good antibiotic. In addition, saliva is the one which is converting your solid food into a liquid paste, so that the liquid paste will get easily digested. Bhagavad Gita says 4 types of food called bhaksha, bhojya, choshya, lehya. Ayurveda goes one step ahead and it says that bhaksha, bhojya, choshya, lehya, charvya, peya. Bhaksha means eating, bhojya means swallowing, bhaksha, bhojya, choshya means slurping, choshya, lehya means licking, then charvya means grinding, and peya means drinking. The 6 types of food which we are taking, out of these, except for this bhojya and peya, except for the drinking and for the swallowing items, for all other items, enough of grinding or enough of churning or enough of mixture with the saliva is required. That is the reason in the mouth we have these many teeth and this particular tongue and this salivary duct. So just visualize, once the food goes inside, without all these processes, if the food directly goes into the esophagus, what may happen to the food? Because inside the stomach, there is no mixer grinder. Inside the stomach, it is a muscle. It is a small sack of muscle. When it is a small sack of muscle, it has got its own digestive juices, and it has to work hard if the food directly goes as a solid material into the stomach. That is the reason as soon as the food goes into the mouth, there must be effective grinding, biting, and effective tossing of the through the tongue and effective mixture of the saliva. That is the reason. In general, when people say saliva, saliva, people feel it is dirty. For that matter, inside the body, almost everything is dirty. One drop of blood, if it comes out of your body on the skin, after a few minutes, if you touch it, you will feel dirty only because it is like a gel. It is sticking. So, everything inside the body is dirty if you look at it that way. But it is basically a physiological and a chemical reaction. It is all biological reaction. There is chemistry and biology effectively inside the body. So don't think that saliva is dirty. In general, in Kannada, we have a proverb which says Hadi Hadi Raga Ugli Ugli Roga. Means by continuously singing, a melody will come out. But continuously spitting, sickness will come out. Saliva is not meant for spitting, saliva is meant for swallowing. Because saliva is basically a antibiotic. If there are germs in the food, saliva itself will kill most of the germs. So people who keep on spitting, they're actually underestimating the purpose of the salivary glands which God put for the first time inside the mouth. For those of you who are listening to me, I keep on telling this God sentence every now and then. If people are there who disbelieve God, someday we will have a discussion about why, if you disbelieve God, you will get a total loss. Okay, I'm not going to discuss God now, but I'll keep on telling that the God Himself has designed this particular mouth, God Himself has designed this particular body. It is not that this body is not designed by any human being. This body is only manufactured inside a mother's womb. That's all. But the mother was not part of its design, father was not part of its design. They were just instrumental in the production. They were not designing this body. So if people say that I don't believe in God, then I should ask them that don't you believe in your own body? If you don't believe in your own body, then just think about how your body is working. That is the discussion here. I will not go into spiritual domains as such. I will be limiting myself into only these physiological discussions. This is the picture of the mouth. Let me go to the next picture. You can see this picture. This is the picture of the esophagus and the stomach. Now from the mouth, when the food should come in the form of this particular paste. And this paste will come down, it will slowly come down, and the paste will gradually enter into stomach. This particular movement of this food item is called as peristalsis. That's a medical term. I am not an expert in the medical terms, but once in a while I will keep using these terms because that is present in this picture. See, the food is coming, it is coming down. In general, the food will not go up. In general, it is a one-way direction. Here also it is one way, and here also it is one way. You can see there are two sphincters. There is one sphincter here, there is one more sphincter here. It's a sphincter muscle. Once the food comes down from the mouth, it will go into the stomach, and this sphincter muscle will prevent the food to go back. Unless if there is any vomiting sensation or unless there is any belching. During belching only air comes out, food will not come out. If there is vomiting, then only it will come out. Vomiting is a subconscious activity of the stomach itself. Stomach senses that something is wrong with the food which is going into the stomach, and the stomach immediately sends a signal to the brain, and the brain will send a signal back to the stomach saying, don't keep it with you, immediately send it out from wherever it came, let it go out. So in general, when vomiting happens, people will think vomiting is a disease. Sorry, vomiting is not a disease. Vomiting in yoga is called as one of the upaprana. Naga, Kurma, Krikala, Devadatta, Dhananjaya. These are called 5 upaprana. Vomiting is one of the subconscious activities where the body is trying to cleanse itself. Stomach senses that something harmful or something poisonous has come inside. It does not want to digest it. It simply sends it out. So if vomiting happens after some time, let us say the person who vomited, he will feel relaxed and he will be at some rest. But in general, whenever people have vomiting, they will feel shameful. Actually, that becoming shameful itself is shameful. Civilized people, educated people think that after vomiting happens, they should be shameful. The person who is a drunkard when he vomits, he should be shameful for his drinking. because the alcohol, the stomach is telling, I'll not keep it inside, I am vomiting. Body is telling, this is not required by me, this is poison for me, I am vomiting it out. But that person will not become shameful. Whenever normal people, when they have vomiting, they feel shameful, which is really ridiculous. So, whenever such vomiting happens, normal people should immediately think that my body is more intelligent. My body knows what is required, what is not required. Mouth may not know, eyes may not know, nose may not know, ears may not know. But intestine knows, stomach knows, especially. Stomach knows what is to be digested, what need not be digested. If it feels that it is toxic food, it will try to send it out. Only then from the stomach, food goes in a reverse way. Otherwise, food always goes down. So that movement is called peristaltic movement, where slowly and steadily through the esophagus, the food should come down. Now think about this esophagus. If the food should come down slowly and steadily, then the food should be effectively churned in the mouth itself, effectively ground in the mouth itself. The food as a very solid material should not come down. Food should be semi-solid paste or semi-fluid paste. If it is semi-fluid, then only stomach will have a easy activity of digesting it. Otherwise, stomach has to secrete more and more of hydrochloric acid. When the stomach secretes more and more of hydrochloric acid, and when the liver secretes more and more of bile juice, then people say, I have acidity, I have acidity. Sorry, you don't have acidity. You caused acidity. You caused more and more secretion of acid to the stomach by putting such material to the stomach, which the stomach could not digest. So, that is why in the first slide I showed the picture of the mouth. Now, remember that when the food goes down, it has to be semi-fluid paste form. It should never be heavily solid. Then gradually when it comes down through a peristaltic movement, it will come into the stomach. My next slide will be stomach itself. Remember these two sphincter muscles now. Now look at the stomach. Very wonderful creation of God. Look at the stomach. You have from the sphincter muscle at the outermost, you have a covering called fundus. Then you will have a longitudinal muscle layer. Then you will have a circular muscle layer. Then you have oblique muscle layer, inside which you will have a mucosa and a submucosa here, which means the stomach has three linings of muscles and the outermost fundus. That means it is like a tire with the four linings. Look at the architecture of the stomach here, the wonder where you will have a longitudinal muscle, you will have a circular muscle, and you will have an oblique muscle, which means God has designed the stomach in such a way that even if a very complicated food item comes inside also, stomach should not get punctured or damaged. The stomach muscle should be very strong like a tire. Just like a tire is holding the weight of the complete vehicle, and the people who are sitting in the vehicle also, the complete weight is on the tires, four tires. So, similarly, whatever food comes inside, the food should not cause any damage to the stomach itself. So, God designed a muscular stomach in such a way where three layers of muscles in different directions. And then there is a submucosa layer, then there is a spongy mucosa layer. Mucosa is a very spongy layer, and in this layer itself, gradually, the digestive fluids, especially hydrochloric acid, is going to be secreted through this mucosa layer. To think about the previous slide and now visualize this slide now. Through the peristaltic movement, when the food comes down, the food enters the stomach here, and the food will be in contact with this mucosa layer, and gradually stomach will produce hydrochloric acid. Now, as soon as the food comes down, this sphincter muscle will remain closed. Here there is one more sphincter muscle, pyloric sphincter. This will also be remaining closed itself. This is also closed, this is also closed. And now the stomach will have a digestion process where it will secrete hydrochloric acid, and it will break the solid mass or semi-fluid mass which is coming from the top. It will break it into smaller fragments, so that the paste will have nutrients separated. So when the nutrients are separated, only then the nutrients will pass on to the intestine now. Only when it is passed on to the intestine will be able to absorb the nutrients into the bloodstream. So the role of the stomach is to break up the complete food material, whatever it is. You may eat whatever. You may eat wheat, you may eat rice, you may eat ragi, you may eat oats, you may eat bread, you may eat idli, you may eat dosa, you may eat sandwich, you may eat pizza, whatever you may eat. Inside the stomach, it is nothing but a semi-fluid mass. All those food items names make sense only until you put them inside the mouth. Once it goes, it is simply a paste, and the paste will be broken into its individual nutrients. That is the role of the stomach. So normally, if it is a simple food, it will stay here in half an hour, 1 hour, or 2 hours. It will stay. If it is a complicated food, it will stay in the stomach itself for 4 hours. Let us say if you eat a pizza, let us say 4 slices of pizza if you eat, full of cheese and maida, white flour. So it will remain in the stomach at least for the next 4 hours, because stomach has to work a lot to convert this particular pizza into its individual counterparts. But if you drink water, water will not stay in the stomach even for the next half an hour. Water will go into the intestine immediately within 5 minutes, because water need not be digested. If you drink milk, milk may stay in the stomach for the next 15 minutes to half an hour, because milk needs to be digested. Milk contains fats. If you drink any fruit juice may stay here only for 10 minutes, because fruit juice need not be digested heavily. So at that time, the stomach will sense the food material which is inside, and then naturally through the sphincter muscle, it will open it up and it will gradually send it into the intestine. Please understand, we think we are intelligent, our body is much more intelligent. We think we are conscious, even a stomach is conscious, even an intestine is conscious, even a heart is conscious, even lungs are conscious, even a liver is conscious, even a kidney is conscious. They all have their own levels of consciousness. You may think that they are nothing but fleshes, nothing but a flesh piece or a muscle piece or whatever. Yes, it is. But it is not a dead flesh. It is a living flesh, living muscle. They all have got their own consciousness. A red blood cell has got its own consciousness. A white blood cell has got its own consciousness. Now, people are heavily afraid of this particular virus, and they say the virus is having a consciousness. Sorry to say, a virus is a non living entity. The virus does not have life. Bacteria have life, red blood cells have life, white blood cells have life. Virus does not have a life. It is a non living form. It will come into life only when it comes in contact with the living form. But people are heavily afraid of the virus having a consciousness. People should know that complete body is a bunch of consciousnesses only. There is a cellular consciousness, subconscious brain is brain neural neurons all neurons are conscious of themselves. All neurons know what to do. And at the conscious level, we think with our own awakened state, and we use our sense organs, and we think that we are conscious. No, our consciousness in the body is hardly 25%. The remaining 75% of whatever is happening in the body, we are actually not conscious. Body is conscious of itself. So, my intention of telling all these things is look at the body in a different dimension. Don't look at the body as a mass of flesh or a bunch of bones. Don't look at the body as a beautiful creature. Don't look at the body as a mother created or father created. No, no, no. This body is inner beauty is much more important than the external beauty there, because the inner beauty itself, all these organs, when they work together, then only internally they are healthy. When they are internally healthy, we can be externally healthy. Otherwise, if the internal health is lost, external health is also actually lost. That way, body is much more conscious. So remember this picture of the stomach. In fact, I got inspiration by one Swamiji called Yogavana Swamiji. My good friend Sridhar, he has also joined into our session now. I had taken him also to meet that particular Swamiji. I was in touch with that Swamiji for nearly 2 years, and through him I learnt a lot of these health related tips. He was not a qualified doctor, he was a basic monk, but he knew a lot more about the body, and he knew not a lot more about the health producing items of Ayurveda. So when I was in touch with him for continuously 2 years, I learned a lot of things from him, and 50% of the credit of this particular PowerPoint is for him only. Okay, that way, let me show my gratitude to my teacher. His name is Yogavana Swamiji. He stays somewhere near Bangalore. But I don't recommend people to go to him because he is not so sophisticated or not so aristocratic in treating people. He lacks some basic social skills, but he has good knowledge of the human body. So that is the reason I put this particular picture, just for people to revise their biological knowledge. Most of the time we study biology till our SSLC. Even in PUC we study biology. Then we generally study only for scoring marks in the exams. Then we comfortably forget whatever we have learned. But that education was not for forgetting. That education was meant for carrying it for the lifetime. Now it is time that people revise their knowledge of biology. They understand their own stomach in a better way compared to whatever they understood in primary school. If at all in primary school, if my teacher would have told all this things about stomach, I would not be able to understand that. I would not be having enough of maturity to understand all those things at that age. But at that age only they have to teach that biology. Otherwise, we may not be learning these later on also. So now it is time that people revise their knowledge of biology, understand the body clearly, and let them submit to the divine will, that body is designed by a divine intention. Let me go on to the next slide. Look at this digestive system. Here is esophagus, then you have stomach, then on top of stomach you have liver, and below stomach you have this pancreas. Then here, after this, you will have a small intestine. From the liver, this is getting connected, stomach is getting connected to the small intestine. Then there is a large intestine. Then there is a rectum. Now, food comes into the stomach. In the stomach, it remains for at least 2 to 4 hours. Then the disintegrated paste. This is a somewhat integrated semi-fluid form. Inside the stomach, it is being digested with the hydrochloric acid, and the disintegrated paste that goes into the small intestine. Now this liver, largest muscle in the body, this liver secretes bile juice. There is a connection from the stomach to the brain, and there is a connection from the liver to the brain. So when the food is there in the stomach, signal goes to the brain, brain sends a signal to the liver to secrete that much amount of bile juice that is required for the further processing of the food. Now liver secretes bile juice, and that bile is stored in a small gallbladder. It is not visible here. Later on in my other slide it is there. There is a small bladder called gallbladder. The gallbladder stores the bile juice, and as and when the liquid paste comes down, this gallbladder will release bile juice into the small intestine now. When the gallbladder releases bile juice into the small intestine, the small intestine is, see, you can see the construction of the small intestine. It is very lengthy. If it is stretched fully, it will be around 30 feet. But it is in a coiled form or a spring form. Through this particular gut section, now the food moves. That semi-fluid food moves through the gut section, and this bile juice breaks up all the other materials into their respective nutrients, vitamins or proteins or carbohydrates or whatever, that will be completely disintegrated. And those nutrients are absorbed into the blood through the small intestine. After that, whatever is the residual solid waste comes here. This is where appendix is there. Solid waste comes here. Gradually solid waste ascends up, ascending colon, transverse colon, then this is descending colon. So this food comes here, then this comes here, then this comes here, then this goes down. Now look at this process. You eat breakfast. When you eat breakfast, let us say breakfast stays for 4 hours here, then it comes down. Here again for, let us say, for about 6 to 8 hours it will stay here, then it comes here. So morning when you eat breakfast, by evening the solid waste will come here. Look at the beauty of God's creation, where body has got one inlet and two outlets. Don't laugh. Don't laugh. When I tell this to people, normally people laugh and people will say, what rubbish or dirty thing he is telling. But don't laugh. Through your mouth only you consume food, or through your mouth only you drink water or drink milk or drink juice or whatever. So mouth is one inlet. But look at the wonder which is happening in the body. Solid waste is separate, liquid waste is separate. There are no filters here. All the liquid item goes into the bloodstream, and from the blood, kidneys will take away the remaining liquid. And all the solid comes into this large intestine. Solid waste goes out through rectum, liquid waste goes out through urethra. So one mouth is the inlet, two outlets. This is a wonderful engineering architecture of God. He designed this body in such a way that let there be one mouth to consume, but let there be separate urethra for liquid outlet and separate rectum for solid outlet, especially with the mammals. You will not find it in birds, you will not find it in other beings. All other beings will have one inlet and one outlet, whereas mammals have separate liquid outlet and separate solid outlet. He designed it that way because mammals require a lot of water for drinking. Mammalian body is a complicated body compared to other reptilian or bird body, and naturally mammals, due to their physical activity, they will have to consume a lot of fluids. Thirst is also there, hunger is also there, due to which this liquid has to go separately. A great engineering marvel is this human body. If people understand it, they will appreciate their own body. Otherwise, stupid people will again laugh at my sentence when I say one inlet and two outlets. I hope all my audience are mature people to understand my wordings and my intention. So, look at this body. Separate solid outlet, separate liquid outlet. I will come to the liquid outlet later. Now, whatever food you eat, 4 hours here, another 8 hours here, 12 hours it takes here. Now, if your food is simple food, then it will gradually come in here, gradually come in here. It will gradually ascend, it will gradually move here, it will gradually go down without any pain, without causing you also any pain, without causing any suffering. If the food is very simple, it will simply come in, simply get digested, simply go away. If the food is complicated, it will not move. It will not move here. For example, let us say, Ayurveda says 3 white poisons. One is white flour, maida. One is sugar. One is salt. The common sugar, which is processed through factories, it has a lot of chemicals. And the common salt which people use, that has also got a lot of chemicals. And the white flour or maida, it is the fiber content is removed out of the wheat, and the fine material like a Fevicol gum is there. So imagine these white flour made products when they go inside, and if it is heavy paste, that paste will not move in this large intestine. One thing. Second thing, if at all the food which goes inside, once it goes into the stomach, if it, because of the chemical reaction, if it causes emission of some gases, some toxic gases inside the small intestine. Now, there can be a food material here, there can be a food material here, in between there can be a small gas packet. Maybe the food which came later on caused a chemical reaction and it emitted gases, and that gas is stuck here. The gas is stuck here. Food which was eaten in the morning is here, food which is eaten in the afternoon is here, in between gas is there. Now that gas, which will be a toxic gas, will cause internally small corrosions into the small intestine. That will cause pain. So, our food should be in such a way that it should not produce any toxic gases inside the stomach. That is when I say art and science of eating. I hope my title is justified now. So, when the food goes inside, solid should be separate, liquid should be separate, gas should not be there. As such, gas should not be there. Even if gas is there, gas can get accumulated in the large intestine, where large intestine will easily pass the gas out through the rectum. But in the small intestine, the gas should not remain. Even in the stomach also, gas should not remain. If in the stomach gas is there, it will come out as burp. But if in the small intestine gas is there, it will not come back here. Look at this. There is a sphincter muscle in the stomach. So this gas will not come back here. This has to only go there. But if the gas is stuck in between two solid mass, that is where it is painful. As such, all our anatomical knowledge or physiological knowledge or biological knowledge, we should relate it to our body, we should relate it to our lifestyle. Now, if your breakfast is here, Later on, when you have lunch, when you have supper, breakfast should move here, gradually lunch will move here, and supper will move here. I'll have one more funny thing now. You may again feel rubbish, or you may feel obscene or dirty or whatever, but I'll tell the fact as it is. In general, human beings go to the toilet only once in a day, that early morning. As soon as they wake up, they'll go to the toilet, they will clean their bowels, they will clear their bowels, and they will think that some dirty thing went out. They'll be happy. They will wait until the next day morning for the movement of the bowels, or for the cleansing of the bowels, or for excretion. They will think that that's a dirty job which what they are doing. Actually, dirty thing what they ate itself became dirty. Look at all the other beings. Do they have any time for going to toilet? A stray dog in the street, does it have any time for going to toilet? A bird which is there flying in the tree, does it have any separate time for going to toilet? No. They keep on consuming food, they keep on excreting whenever it happens. They are not worried about keeping it inside the stomach till next day morning. This is a problem with the human beings. They will eat today morning breakfast, they will excrete it tomorrow morning. So 4 hours it is in the stomach, next about 12 hours, 8 hours it is here, then later on it is stuck in the large intestine itself, and the body is telling, let me go, let me go. The toxic waste which is there in the large intestine, it is telling, let me go. But this fellow is telling, no, 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 I am busy, only tomorrow morning, only tomorrow morning. I will not let you go, I don't have time. This is where the toxic material gets stored in the large intestine. And in the old age, the large intestine will be more and more toxified. Years of such habit. So many years they have been storing this large mass of toxic waste inside the large intestine. And in the old age, when they have serious intestine related problems, I have some of my students who have been suffering through such intestine related problems for which there are no serious solutions. Now have changed their complete lifestyle. They have completely changed their food habits also. They have changed their complete lifestyle. So, if this large intestine develops any serious problem, it is very difficult to cure. Even through surgery also, sometimes it cannot be cured. And all intestine related or rectum related issues like piles or all types of other prolapses, why they happen? Because we load this. So now you may ask me, sir, in that case, what are we supposed to do? Yeah, Yogavana Swamiji used to say that everybody should excrete twice in a day. Now people will laugh. Well educated and aristocratic people will laugh. They'll say, we have all other work to do. Don't we have time for all that? Yeah, yeah. But think about health. Think about health. Think about all other beings. They don't store the toxic waste inside their body for hours together. Whenever they want to excrete, they will immediately excrete without any second thought. But human beings are thinking a lot of man maryada. They are thinking we are all respected people. We are not like birds and animals. We are well educated human beings. This is what human beings think. That is the reason human beings suffer. So, my point here is, whenever in the evening if you feel that you have a heavy stomach, then better make a habit to go to toilet and clean your bowel at that time itself. Don't keep that load till next day morning. As I told you, body should heal itself during sleep. If the body is unable to heal itself because of the digestion and the excretion, you load it during supper. Now stomach is overworking. Here in the intestine, since morning, the waste has been coming. It is not going out. It is stuck here. Now both the intestine and the stomach are telling, you are loading us, you are loading us. But we are not listening to them. We are busy with our own other activities. And one fine day, both will say that enough is enough. We are exhausted, they will say. That is when diseases come into picture. I'll tell you a small biography. Let me keep checking the time. The time is now 8:26. Okay. A small biography. One person who was in Germany, he had a colon cancer here in the colon, in the large intestine. He had a cancer. And he went for testing and he asked his doctor. Then the doctor said, as we have a colon cancer, we have to cut the colon into two pieces. and we have to remove the cancerous tissue, then we have to stitch it back. He asked, is there no other alternative? Then doctor said, no other alternative, because cancer is going to spread. We have to cut your colon now, and we have to join it together. Now he said, after you cut my colon, if you join it again, how much time it may take for it to heal itself? They said, as you are aged already more than 40, it may be taking you nearly a month for it to heal itself. The stitching, that colon's muscle or flesh, it has to join itself again. It is not like a skin on the outer part of our body. So it will take its own time to join. And 1 month, until 1 month, how I am going to survive? He said. Then they said, your survival chance is only 90%. Sorry, your survival chance is only 10%. Your life is at risk for 90%, because after this surgery, after the stitching of the colon, if it does not join together, then you will not survive. Then he thought, okay, my survival chance is only 10%. That 1 month I have to bear this pain, and in 1 month I should be on drips only, because in that, through the stomach, food should not go, which means it's a torturous pain, and my survival chance is only 10%. So he thought, should I submit myself to the doctors, the surgical procedure, or should I look for some other alternative? He was a well educated person, so he studied on his own all other medical systems on earth. All other medical systems on earth. Then he found out that in Ayurveda there are some herbs. Those herbs, especially Triphala, those herbs can heal the intestine gradually. Then he took a decision. He came from Germany to Chennai. He stayed in India for 2 years. For the first 1 year, he studied Sanskrit and he studied Ayurveda on his own completely for his own health. And for the next 1 year, whatever he studied, he had consulted many people in Chennai. Ayurveda experts he had consulted, other experts also he had consulted. Then he administered those herbs into his own body for continuous 1 year. After that 1 year, he was completely healed of the colon cancer without any surgical procedures. Then he learned Sanskrit now. He learned Ayurveda. He learned a book called, he wrote a book called Practical Ayurveda. He changed his name as Atreya. You can look for his book, Practical Ayurveda, written by Atreya. That is the greatness of the human body, and that is the greatness of the herbal therapy as such, that the greatness of understanding him, his own body properly. Okay. This example I told you just to understand the importance of the health of large intestine, small intestine, the digestive system as such, excretory system as such. Uh, we are all engineers, we are all doctors, we are all postgraduates, we are all doctorates, we are all that. But are we really knowing the internal working of our own body? If we don't know the working of our own body, then whatever we know of anything else is going to be futile. For example, I am a MTech holder in VLSI design and embedded systems, and my specialization is teaching MOSFETs, and my PhD work is also on phase lock loops. Let us say I arrogantly boast of myself that I am a senior assistant professor in an engineering college, and I teach a lot about technology and engineering sciences. And if I don't know how my own body works, then what is the stupidity? What is the greatness of me knowing everything else? And if I don't know my own body properly, I'll tell a small story. In fact, I have many collections of stories. I think that every episode, let me tell one story each. My today's story, let me take a small 1 minute break. Later on, I'll tell a small story. Until then, you also take small. Yes, Sriram, I have muted myself. I am taking a small break now. Subramanya Hebbar, are you there online?
Yeah, I'm online.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah. Um, I'm Subramania Hebar. So I actually I live in Dallas, Texas. So I am originally from Bangalore. My parents are there. So for my masters, I came here and I've started working here. So and I work in a finance-based company as a software engineer.
Okay, how did you come to know about this session?
Uh, it's through my brother-in-law. So I'm not sure if you know of him. It's Shiva Kumar. So through him, I came to know about you.
Okay,
He forwarded, yeah, he forwarded me the details.
okay, fine. Pradeep Reddy,
Hi, sir. Hi, everyone.
hello. Where are you right now?
I'm in Bangalore only, sir.
Bangalore only?
Yeah.
Okay, then you mute yourself.
Sure.
Gopi, Gopi, are you there? Maybe Gopi is not active. Gopi is in Slovenia now. So after so many years, yeah, Gopi.
Sorry, sir. I need to switch on the mic.
Okay, I just
Yeah,
wanted you to introduce yourself to our audience.
yeah. I am Gopi. I am working in Slovenia. I am working for an IT company here, the bank. And I know Arvind sir while I was learning a mobile course in Palstrom Industry, which is located in Bangalore. And I think it was almost 8 years before. It was nice to have this session after a long time with him. I'm so excited about this thing. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let me continue. If people have any questions of any particular asking, if you want to do, you can use the chat box. You can type it in. If you don't have questions, I'll just keep on proceeding this way. For my today's story, uh, Charaka, he had written a beautiful book called Charaka Samhita. Charaka and Sushruta, they were pioneers in the field of Ayurveda. So Charaka had many disciples. One day Charaka called all his disciples and asked him three questions. Koruk, Koruk, Koruk. Koruk means Kaha Aruk. Kaha Aruk became Koruk as a sandhi in Sanskrit. Kaha Aruk, Kaha Aruk, Kaha Aruk means who is not having disease, who is not having disease, who is not having disease. Ruk means disease. Ruk, Rugna, Roga. That is how the word came. Aruk means the one who is not having Roga or one who is not having disease. So Charaka simply asked this question: who is disease free? Who is disease free? Who is disease free? One student told Chavanaprasha Bhuk. One student told whoever consumes Chavanaprasha every day and he will be disease free. One more student told Makaradhvaja Bhuk. Makaradhvaja is a very famous medicine in Ayurveda, which is used for especially cleansing of the kidneys and the bladder, especially for all types of urinary related issues. Makaradhvaja is the medicine used. But please don't use this medicine on your own. All these medicines have used only through a doctor's supervision, any Ayurveda doctor supervision. So one student told Chavanaprasha book. By the end of these slides, I am going to tell you a story of Chavanaprasha also. That is a very beautiful story. I have a slide on that. When I come to that slide, I am going to tell the story of Chavanaprasha. Until then, you please hold. So somebody told, whoever consumes Chavanaprasha every day, he is a healthy person. Somebody else told, whoever consumes Makaradhwaja, he is a healthy person. Now Vagbhata's turn came. Vagbhata was a disciple of Charaka. When Vagbhata's turn came, Vagbhata said, Hitabhuk, Mitabhuk, Rutabhuk. Charaka asked 3 questions. Koruk, Koruk, Koruk. Vagbhata told, Hitabhuk, Mitabhuk, Rutabhuk. Hitabhuk means the one who eats. Bhuk means bhunjati, means consuming food. The one who eats with pleasure. Hita, with pleasing. Mitabhuk, the one who eats with the limit. Rutabhuk, the one who eats in accordance with the seasons. Food should be in accordance with the seasons. If you observe nature, God creates food as per seasons. Some fruits are in some seasons. Seasonless fruit is banana. Banana is available 365 days. That means banana can be consumed in any season. But all other fruits, just observe them, they come in only some particular seasons. For example, watermelon fruit, that is especially in summer season, where body can withstand that much of liquid intake. That should not be consumed in a winter season. So Vagbhata told, Hitabhuk, Mitabhuk, Rutabhuk. Hitabhuk means eat with pleasure. Mitabhuk means eat with limit. Rutabhuk means eat in accordance with the seasons. With this story, let me go to my next slide. Till now, I was showing you some pictures. Keep remembering those pictures. Anyhow, after the end of this session, I am going to send all the recordings to you also. I am going to send this PPT also to you. Whenever I have such slides where I have more text, I will go in a slightly faster pace, because I have already told all these things. The food undergoes 4 consecutive processes within your system: ingestion, digestion, absorption, excretion. You already know that. During food consumption, slowly mash and chew the food before swallowing it. I have showed you the picture of the mouth. So don't be in a hurry to eat. The very problematic style which I see with these urban dwelling citizens is that they don't have time for food consumption. They have time for everything else. They don't have time for food consumption. Some of my colleagues are also in this session. They know my method that I consume my lunch in 2 parts. I have my breakfast by around 7:30 here at home. Then I leave home. I reach college. I cannot wait till 1:30 because my breakfast will be normally porridge. So I cannot wait till 1:30 for my food. I become hungry earlier. So I consume half of my lunch by around 11:30, 12. Remaining half of the lunch may be around 2:30 or 3. Many of my colleagues keep watching me. Even my head of the department also keeps watching me. Some of my earlier colleagues used to make a mockery of me also. Maybe now also some of them may be mocking at my backside. I don't know really. I don't know really. But our present HOD appreciated me for this particular thing. When one of my colleagues told me that Arvind sir दो वक्त खाना खाते हैं दोपहर में, then my HOD told, वो जो अच्छा कर रहे हैं वो लीवर को बर्डन नहीं दे रहे हैं, स्टोमक को बर्डन नहीं दे रहे हैं, BP ज़्यादा नहीं होगा. That means he understood. I consume lunch in 2 parts, half of the lunch at 11:30, 12, remaining lunch 2:33, means I am not overloading my stomach again. And I am taking my own time to slowly consume the food. Okay. These are all the practices which I have understood, and gradually I applied it in my life without bothering much about what others think of me. Because when they do not understand themselves, how you can expect them to understand you? If I understand myself, that is enough. Sometimes it takes a lifetime to understand ourselves. Sometimes even in the whole life also we may not understand ourselves. We may be more bothered about understanding others. My simple principle is that don't waste your time in trying to understand others. Utilize that time in understanding yourself. Understanding yourself takes you a lot of time. Your body, for you to understand, it takes a lot of time. Your mind, if you have to understand, it takes a lot of time. Your own soul, it may take many lives to understand. For understanding God, it may take still more lives. We don't know. So there is no point in trying to understand others. They may not understand us. Okay. This has been my way. I would advise you also, don't have a heavy lunch. If possible, instead of 3, have it as 4. Same amount of food, instead of having 3 times in a day, take 4 times in a day. I will bring the analogy of all the birds and animals once again. All these birds, look at them. All the normal animals, look at them. When do they have time for consuming food? They don't consume food in 3 installments like breakfast, lunch and dinner. They consume food little amount whole day. They don't have a specific time for that, which means they are not overloading their system as such. So it is better that small amount of nutritious breakfast, or breakfast like a king, nutritious, rich, and lunch in 2 parts if possible. Your boss may be angry on you, I don't know. And supper as minimum as possible, only for satiating your hunger. I'll have one more tip. I'll go back to my previous slide. I have one more tip to tell you. Look at the stomach. The stomach, there is a sphincter muscle. So after dinner, if you go to sleep, let us say between your dinner and your sleep, if there is not enough of time, then it is better to sleep towards your left side. Not towards your right side, towards your left side. Reason is, if you sleep towards your right side, your stomach will be towards the right side and the sphincter muscle will be pressed. If the sphincter muscle will be pressed, then the stomach has to put more force to force this to the intestine. Force this to the intestine. So if you sleep towards the left side, then this sphincter muscle will be upside and easily it can force the food to the intestine. Otherwise, liver also will be pressed. Liver also is at the right side. Liver and the sphincter muscle both will be pressed together and food may not easily pass into the intestine. This centuries before, Sarvajna had told in his Kannada Vachana also that you should sleep towards the left side when you go to sleep after dinner. But if there is a sufficient gap between dinner and sleeping, within that 2 to 3 hours, let us say 2 hours gap is there. If you consume lesser amount of food for your dinner, then within the 2 hours digestion would have happened, it would have gone to intestine. Then in any side you sleep, no problem. Now, as per the yogic perspective is concerned, you sleep towards the left side after your dinner, your right side nostril will be open. Right side nostril is called Pingala. And the Pingala Nadi increases the warmth of the body. That is also a beneficial thing there. So, when the right side nostril is open, body will be more warm and that warmth will cause digestion to happen easily. So, that way also it works out. Anatomy wise also, as far as the yogic perspective is concerned, in both ways, sleeping towards the left side is a good practice. Later on, as per the needs of the body, it may turn the side on its own subconsciously. Without your own knowledge, you may turn this side or that side. You may not be knowing at all. Body takes its own decision to turn its side based on the Ida Pingala activity. Okay, so during food consumption, slowly mash and chew the food before swallowing it. The enzymes in the saliva will decompose the food and this will reduce the churning work in the stomach, thus saving your overall energy. That overall energy, in Sanskrit we have the word for it called prana. This word prana does not have a equivalent English word. In English they call it as life force. Life separate, force separate. They don't have equivalent word for prana. In Sanskrit, pra plus ad atti ana ana. Pra plus a plus ana. That way, ad atti means to consume. After consumption, it produces the energy in the body, that biological energy, that is called prana in Sanskrit. The same word in Chinese is called chi, ki, and the same word in Chinese is called chi, and in Japanese it is called ki. Okay. Don't drink lot of water during the consumption of food. If the food is mixed with more water, then the stomach will not work much. It will simply pass the food on to the intestine. Think about this stomach now. If you drink more water with this solid food, now the solid food has to break itself into its nutrients. If there is more water there, then the digestion process will not happen properly because this hydrochloric acid will get diluted. Just think about your own mixer grinder at home. If you put any item called rice, let us say you put rice there, how much of water do you put? Let us say half of mixie is rice, remaining 1/4 is water, then you will switch on the mixer, you will grind it into a batter. Let us say if liquid content is more than the rice content, only mixie will be running, but that batter will not get produced inside the mixie. You can observe it, you can actually try it. All the people who are experts in cooking, they'll know it. There's an adequate proportion of liquid and solid there. And 25% of the mix you should be empty, so that the rotation or the movement of the fluid and the solid inside the mix will happen properly. Now the same analogy apply here. Food must be 50% solid, 25% liquid, and there must be 25% free space for the easy movement inside. Because the stomach produces hydrochloric acid, and for the equal mixture and the breakup of the nutrients, solid food fully should not go. Along with solid food, 25% liquid food should be there. That is why in the Indian tradition, at the end of the meals, normally they will have a buttermilk. Generally, I think North Indian people prefer curds more, curds and raita and such items more. South Indian people normally will have buttermilk always at the end of the meals, because South Indian people consume more of rice, whereas North Indian people consume more of rotis. So that way, maybe intuitively the wiser people of the older generation would have thought, at the end when the curds come, the curds will easily digest all the roti made of wheat. Similarly, this side, South Indian side, people would have thought that when buttermilk goes inside along with the rice, it will completely aid the digestion of the rice. So look at their wisdom. At the end of the meals, they will have some liquid content. So normally, food must be 50% solid, 25% liquid, and 25% free space. Don't eat stomach full. If you eat stomach full, you will get drained out. Normally, when you eat stomach full, stomach will be filled, and stomach will take its own time to produce more and more of hydrochloric acid. So never eat stomach full. Eat only for satiating your hunger, not for your pleasure. So I think this is a good tip. 50% solid food, 25% liquid food, and 25% free space. That is the reason should not drink lot of water during the consumption of food. You can have water near you. You can have water bottle or you can have a cup of water, but don't drink a lot of water there. Assume that you visualize your own stomach. Once that water goes inside, whatever food you consume, its nutrients may not be effectively utilized by the body. It may simply go out as a waste through the colon. So should not drink a lot of water during the consumption of food. If the food is mixed with more water, then the stomach will not work much. It will simply pass the food on to the intestine. For the proper decomposition of the nutrients, the food in the stomach should not be completely liquid, should not be completely solid. It should be a semi-liquid fine paste. This I have already told. Don't eat stomach full. It will deprive the smooth movement of the stomach and will drain your energy. This I have already told. Many things I have already told. I will go a little faster. The food remains in the stomach for about 3 hours, and later on it gets fully digested within the intestine, and the waste reaches the large intestine after about 12 hours of the intake of the food. This timing is applicable only if the food consumed is vegetarian and if it is light in nature. For the heavy food such as fatty and oily, and for non-vegetarian food, the digestion process takes more time, nearly 20 to 30 hours. I told you the heavy food such as fatty, oily, I gave an example of pizza. Especially meat also. Meat also takes much more time for digestion inside. So nearly 20 to 30 hours. Due to the bad food habits or due to the improper food consumption, if the intestine loses its slippery nature, then the toxins get accumulated, leading to scaling. By the end of this presentation, I will be showing you the picture of the scaling and the methods for curing that scaling also. Until then, please wait. So, if because of the bad food habits, more and more of junk food, more and more of snacks, or due to the improper food consumption, if the intestine loses slippery nature, just visualize this intestine again. intestine. In general, intestine has fluid inside already and it should be having a slippery nature. Easily the waste should go out. If it loses slippery nature, then the toxic waste gets stuck up here and you will have to put more effort for your excretion. So that should not happen in general. So if that scaling happens, if the intestine loses the slippery nature, toxins will get accumulated, it is leading to scaling. If the scaling happens, then that is when I told you sometimes there can be pains, sometimes there can be ulcers. Ulcer may gradually turn into cancer. Small wound may become bigger, and internal wound may become more and more gravitated, and gradually someday it will lead into a serious disease. Your small intestine is about 20 feet long and the large intestine is about 5 feet long. Thus total in the length of the intestine to be about 25 feet. The completion of the digestion process happens in the small intestine and most of the nutrients get absorbed into the bloodstream. This I have already told. The large intestine is responsible for the absorption of water and then for the excretion of the solid waste. The toxins should not be allowed to accumulate in the large intestine for a longer duration. This also I have told you already. It is better that stomach should not be loaded, intestine should not be loaded, especially dinner should not be heavy. Otherwise, this results in gastritis, constipation, impure blood, weak intestine, and so on. It will result in gastritis. I gave an example of gas being accumulated in between two packets of solid waste. Constipation means if the waste is heavily solid, then that heavily solid waste will cause pain at the rectum. It will not easily pass out because the water gets absorbed into the bloodstream at the large intestine and only solid remains there, and that is when it may cause heavy issues in future like fistula or piles or such things. And impure blood means if the toxins are accumulated in the large intestine itself for a longer duration, those toxins themselves will be absorbed into the blood also. Gradually blood will become impure and intestine will become weak and it will go on this way. That is where I keep telling that we give more importance to the brushing of the teeth, clean mouth. Are we giving importance to the cleaning of the rectum also? Don't laugh again. We are only worried about the inlet, cleanliness of the inlet. Are we really worried about the exit? Entrance should be very clean. What about the exit? Exit also will be very clean. Think about a film theater. You go into a film theater, entrance is very clean. You go inside, you get seated in the auditorium, you watch the movie. When you come out, if the exit is dirty, how do you feel? Let us say you go into a garden. Let us say the inlet to the garden is very clean with decoration and the outlet is somewhere else. Let us say if the outlet is also not clean, let us say dirty, how will you feel? Same way, in the human body, we give so much of importance for the cleanliness of the mouth, but the rectum should be equally clean. Now you may ask me now, sir, how to keep the rectum clean? I have all those tips at the end now. Some yogic tips and some Ayurvedic tips are there. But understand that just like the mouth should be clean, even the intestine should be clean and the rectum should be clean. Stool should easily pass away from the rectum. They should not get accumulated there. They should not cause pain at the end. Some of the diseases which people suffer in the open arena, they are hesitating to tell them or about to they are feeling shy to talk about that also. The reason is such sufferings are, they think that the sufferings are should not be discussed in public. But if you don't discuss in public, how will you get the knowledge of it? I discuss all these things in public only. As far as the health is concerned, there is nothing called shameful thing, because when pain is occurring because of the ignorance of the human system. If the human system is properly understood, gradually we will be more responsible in our consumption of the food. That is when the art and science of the eating title will make more and more of justification there. Okay. If any of you have any questions, you can ask me now. because my speech as being monotonous, just to break it. This slide, after this slide, for tomorrow, I'll discuss all these particular points. Okay, I have a question. Is intermittent fasting good for our body? Fasting will be good for your body only if you have the stamina to handle that hunger. Fasting is not recommended by yogic texts. Fasting was recommended only to normal people who used to eat heavily. But fasting is good. To some extent, fasting is good in the sense, if you can withstand the pressure of fasting, if you make it a habit, then body will tell you when it is hungry. Otherwise, habitually, if people are having breakfast, lunch and dinner, automatically without your own knowledge, subconsciously, let us say 1 o'clock is the lunch time, your body is habituated to have a lunch without you wanting to eat also. Sometimes body reminds you that 1 o'clock lunch time. So hunger becomes a habit to the body. You only habituated it that way. So fasting breaks this particular habit. But I have seen some of my friends who have been religious, and through their own religious customs, Ekadashi, they used to remain fasting whole day. And later on, I used to find them suffer for the next 2 or 3 days. Morning till evening, they never used to consume anything. And they used to boast that, I don't drink one drop of water also, they used to say. But hunger used to happen to them. When hunger used to happen to them, they could not admit it because they were proud that they are performing Ekadashi Vrata. But when you are working in the office, let us say you fast, you may faint after some time. Let us say one person is working in a factory, operating on a machinery, heavy work if it is there, and his body requires enough energy and body requires food. Let us say in a hungry state itself, if he keeps operating any machine, then the body may tell that I am not allowing you to work anymore, and he may faint. That should not happen. So fasting should not be done that way. But occasionally once, let us say you skip lunch, you have one breakfast, you have a dinner, in between you skip lunch. If you can skip lunch, again if you can remain healthy, then better you do it, because body knows how much food is required. There must be care taken for fasting. Fasting should not be done just for the sake of something else. Are there any more questions? Okay, there is one more question. They say we need to eat in regular time. Is it a myth? People say it leads to gastritis. Is it true? For this question, I'll ask you a question in return, that only human beings have breakfast, lunch and dinner. All other birds and animals, they don't have a specific time for breakfast, lunch and dinner. They eat small portion whole day. They remain healthy. God did not make a system of breakfast, lunch and dinner. Human beings made a system of breakfast, lunch and dinner. To give you one more example, now we have 3 meals per day: breakfast, lunch and dinner. In the olden days, people used to have only 2 meals per day. They never used to have breakfast. They only used to have lunch and dinner. In my grandfather's time or great grandfather's time, they never had anything called breakfast. This idli, dosa, vada, masala, whatever, it was not there at that time. Only once in a month, whenever they used to have festivals, they used to have some grand meals like that. Otherwise, they used to have normal meals, only lunch and dinner. They never used to have breakfast. Still, they remained healthy. So it doesn't mean that everything is developing gastritis that way. But the people who habitually develop this 3 times meals, then the body may make them remember. Or sometimes, let us say you are involved, let us say you are watching a movie or you are watching a cricket match, you are engrossed in that particular activity. Even during lunchtime also, you will not feel hungry. But otherwise, if you are looking at a watch, 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock lunchtime, if you think like that, automatically you will develop hunger. So basically, this is a subconscious activity. Consciously, you may try to control it. So developing gastritis and all those things, it is not really true. Because if that was the case, then all the other beings also should have had gastritis. That is not so. This is a myth that people say you should eat in regular times. If you understand Kannada, I'll tell you one Sarvajna Vachana. Hasiyade unabeda, hasidumattirabeda. Hasiyade unabeda, hasidumattirabeda. Bisiyutaveda, tangalu beda, vaidyana gasanaye bedenda Sarvajna. Hasiyade unabeda. Don't eat if you are not hungry. Hasidumattirabeda. If you become hungry, don't stop eating. Immediately eat. Because body tells you I am hungry. Then you immediately eat. Hasiyade unabeda, hasidumattirabeda. Bisiyutabeda, tangalobeda. Don't eat very hot food. Similarly, don't eat stale food. Bisiyutabeda, tangalobeda. Eat only warm food. Very hot food you don't consume. And very stale food also don't consume. Bisiyuta beda, tangalu beda, vaidyana gasanaye beda and the Sarvajna. You don't have to go to doctor at all. That's what Sarvajna is told. So people say it is gastritis. I don't know whether people are nutritional experts or people are healthy experts. I really don't know. My experience tells me that when I am hungry, body tells me to eat. When I am not hungry, I need not consume. For example, if you consume a pizza, for the next 4 to 6 hours also, you may not feel hungry at all because you have loaded the body that way. Now there is a next question. Can we have ginger or garlic in early morning along with honey? No. No. Don't medicate yourself. Can we have ginger and honey early morning? No. See, ginger is a medicinal root. Garlic is also a medicinal substance. In the early morning, along with the honey, they are not recommended. If you have a consultation with an Ayurvedic expert, he will give you pathya and apathya. He will give you anupana. Along with what honey can be consumed, along with what milk can be consumed, along with what ghee can be consumed. That is called pana and anupana. To reduce the potency of some medicinal herb, they recommend honey as such. But in the early morning, consuming ginger, garlic and honey is not at all required. It is not a cure for anything else. Honey is basically a nutritional element. Honey contains a lot of fructose, the nectar of the flower which is collected by the honeybee. So it contains a lot of fructose. It is having a nutritional value. Honey can be consumed directly as such. It works like a food there. But it should not be consumed heavily also because it is a concentrated fructose element. It may become heavy also for you. So I would not recommend you consuming ginger, garlic in the early morning with honey. Okay. For losing excess fat, some people take it. Is it proper? No. See, if you have to reduce fat, I'll ask you a common sense question. How fat came? Fat came because of overeating and less working. More eating, less working. How do you burn the fat? Less eating, more working. That is the only way. There is no other way. Fat burning substances, if you take them, instead of burning the fat, if they burn the muscle, what will you do? Do you know that it will selectively burn only the fat? Let us say ginger goes inside, garlic goes inside. Whatever comes in contact with ginger and garlic, it will burn that also. Don't think that it will burn only the fat. Let us say ginger and garlic is adjacent to a intestinal wall. What will happen to the intestinal wall or to the stomach wall? I have shown you the picture of the fundus, smooth, creamy layer of the stomach. That smooth, creamy layer of the stomach, if it gets damaged by ginger or garlic, what will you do? So don't use such things just because somebody else tells, or just because some website tells, just because your neighbors tell, just because your relatives tell. Don't do all that. Okay. Losing fat, only thing is overeating and less working, people develop fat. Let them work more physically, let them exercise more, let them consume food lesser, let them eat only for the satiation of hunger, let them not eat for the satiation of the pleasure. Then fat will not get developed. That is a safe way. All other things are gimmicks. You have told about 3 whites that we need to avoid. According to few practice, milk is also induced in that. Okay. Milk is a normal present milk, which is a Pasteurized milk has become an industry now. When milk has become an industry, even the milk is going through processing. But I'll not add milk into this fourth white poison. Some people say rice is also the fifth white poison, because rice is polished and double polished, triple polished. Rice will be not having this fiber content. They say that. I'll have suggestions for that later on. Milk should not be consumed. Milk, if possible, in your neighborhood, if there are organic milk available, try to consume them. Even though it is slightly expensive, that is a better option compared to the normal industrious milk. I purchase milk not from the regular dairy. I purchase milk from a person who has 3 or 4 cows at his home. So he does not use machinery there, and he does not suffocate the cows there. So that way I am consuming that particular milk. That is my suggestion. We cannot completely avoid milk. Milk is required for the body. Regarding that, I will tell you later. At least to reduce consumption of milk for some reason. Why should you want to consume? One should want to reduce the consumption of the milk. At least 1 glass per day. Drink milk. Gastritis and arthritis are somewhere related. Somewhere I read long-term gas problem will lead to arthritis. Yes, arthritis is joint problems. Gastritis is accumulation of gas. If the accumulation of gas is happening inside the intestine, similar way accumulation of gas can happen inside the joints also. And if that gas does not get released, it may cause muscular pains in the joints also. That gradually leads to arthritis. The solution to that is regular exercise for the body. If you have regular physical exercise, all the joints will have enough circulation, movement, and the gas that is accumulated in the joints will gradually go away. That is the immediate solution. What is solid food? Is ragi mudda belong to same? No, ragi mudda is not purely solid. Ragi mudda is semi-solid, or ragi mudda is fluid. So ragi mudda is a very safe food. Okay, enough for today. With this, I'll stop for today. Tomorrow again we shall meet. Just a minute. How to send you the code? Just a minute. Hold on. Let me see whether I can get the code today itself. Okay, I am not getting the code. I'll send you the mail once again tomorrow morning in Cisco WebEx. Whenever I get that code, the same procedure I'll follow tomorrow. Until then, take care. I'll end the meeting for today. Tomorrow evening by 7:30, we shall meet again. Okay, just I am seeing the chat. Others can leave the meeting. I'm just seeing the chat message. That is fine. People who are unable to join into meeting, that is fine. Anyhow, my recorded sessions I will be sharing with all of you after the sessions end. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.